final New England inductee, and then we have some other names that we're going to honor, but right now it's all about the Firebrand Bryan Fury. So Bryan has retired from active competition. He is the owner of the New England Pro Wrestling Academy in North Andover, Massachusetts. He is now the owner of Chaotic Wrestling, which means my longtime friend is now my boss. So I'll keep that nice, short, and sweet. But here to induct Bryan Fury into the Hall of Fame is the king of dad style. It's that guy, Scotty Slade.
I got to watch all these speeches and try to figure out exactly what I was going to say. Because Joe actually messaged me and he says, listen, you got to come up and say the best thing about Bryan Fury. Unfortunately, the best thing is actually his fiancée, Nikki, so I really don't know where to go from here. But no, all kidding aside, to kind of know where Bryan got to this point, you have to know his mentor. And his mentor was none other than mofo Steve Bradley. And so Bryan really wanted to become just like Steve, because when Steve entered a room, he had that aura of respect. And that's exactly what Bryan wanted. Not because Bryan's an egomaniac, and we all know he is. It's because he wanted that aura that he was contributing to New England wrestling, that he was adding something to the business that we're all here for. And along the way, Bryan Fury has done just that. Steve Bradley was able to run a school, so Bryan Fury's now running a school. Steve Bradley ran the WFA, so now Bryan Fury's running Chaotic Wrestling. Bryan Fury's love for his students is kind of what keeps him going, along with Nikki keeping me in check. But as much love as Bryan has for the business, and as much love as Bryan may give off outside of wrestling, on the other hand, he's an asshole. Anytime that Bryan can kind of make you feel uncomfortable, squeamish, anything of that nature, he's going to take full advantage of it. A very brief story of that is, him and Eddie Edwards would always have this spot where Bryan would decide to go down and tie his shoe, and Eddie would just run right towards him. And all of a sudden, Bryan seamlessly would give Eddie a big back body drop. But this was also in a mall at a Santa's Village in front of a bunch of children waiting to see Santa. At a wrestling show, they probably get a big pop, but let me tell you, their faces said otherwise. But about 8 years ago, I was not wrestling anymore. I was kind of done doing all this, and Bryan kind of gave me a call and said that there was more to do and I should come back. Along the way, I watched straight edge Bryan Fury evolve into Firebrand. I was able to watch him become sort of a vision of Steve, and even now, without naming all of the people on his resume, you can see who he's touched, who he's influenced, and kind of who he's trained, whether it is local New Englanders, whether it's people that travel across the world, or even people that perform on the highest platform there is in the WWE. And along those 8 years, I think I grew closer, a lot closer to Bryan. And I know he's got this tough exterior, and I know he wants to get up here because for the last 3 months he's been writing his acceptance speech. But for the tough exterior that he has, it's my honor, for somebody whose favorite network is HDTV, for somebody who loves Broadway musicals, and somebody who will never turn down a foot massage and foot spa day, none other than, I'm his best friend, he's not mine, the Firebrand, Bryan Fury.
Originally, I was just going to roast everybody, and then on the drive here, my fiance told me I'm absolutely not allowed to do that, so you are all safe. Everything that I had written is now in the trash, because I still want to get married in October, so that's not happening. I started wrestling in 1999 by Jeff Costa, the Lobster Man, Rip Morrison, and Maverick Wild. And time-honored tradition is while you are training, you are a referee. And so my first time in a wrestling ring during a show, I was a referee, and the match that I refereed was the Lobster Man versus Homozuna. And I decided, I don't know if this is really for me. I don't know if this is the place for me to train. But I stayed there for another 3 years, and I owe a lot of my wrestling knowledge to those three guys. And then I started training with Steve Bradley. And for those of you Steve Bradley, obviously, huge influence on me, a huge influence on my good friend and another mentor of mine, Alex Arion, and a man that I actually inducted into the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2009. 2009. Like Scotty said, I kind of modeled a lot of myself in my career after that man, and that means I am mean, I am angry, I am a jerk to a lot of people, but I'm very driven and I'm very focused and I have a vision and I'll do whatever it takes to get those things done. Just like Steve, that's kind of the way I've modeled myself in my career, for better or worse. So that being said, I just kind of want to throw some thank yous out there because I don't want to be up here all night. I know I'm here late and you guys have heard a million and one names. So a couple thank yous, obviously. People like Alex, who taught me how to be a babyface, whether he realizes it or not. He was probably my greatest opponent and my final opponent, actually, when I retired. Justin McIsaac, or Justin Shape, Justin Powers, who was my very first match ever. Revolution Chris Venom, who was my tag team partner in Adrenaline when all the top spots in New England were held by the same four people in every promotion. Chris Venom and I decided that there's no way we're going to get there until they retire, so we decided to go the tag team route and kind of made names for ourselves that way and broke off and both kind of did all right for ourselves, I think. And then the list goes on to anybody that I shared the ring with, to later on people like Jim Mikowski, an adult, I'm not going to say his whole name, who kind of helped me in my last phase of my career in chaotic wrestling and kind of helped me keep going after I was somewhat lost when Steve stopped running and whatnot. The people that I've met in this business and become friends with in this business, that's been my life. Pro wrestling has been everything to me. Anybody that knows me knows, I just work part-time, whatever random jobs to make sure that I could continue teaching at the school. I could continue making my bookings and whatnot. And my students have been really what kept me going the last, I want to say, like 8 years. It's weird that I'm getting emotional because I love my students more than, I love anything that I did in my own career. As much as I loved being out in front of the crowd and getting the pops and all that stuff, it means so much more to me to see people that dreamed and wanted to be professional wrestlers live that through me helping them get there. So thank you to every single one of my students that's ever stepped foot in the ring at my school. You guys keep me young even though I'm old, and Joe put me in the front row because I have trouble hearing apparently. I got to be in front of the speaker. Lastly, thank you to my fiance Nikki for keeping me very grounded and humble, even though I could be a complete asshole and nobody really here probably thinks I am humble. I'd be way worse if it wasn't for her. Thank you all for coming out to this. I really appreciate it. I love you all.